Welcome to Freema Audiobooks, a space created for those who want to build inner strength, sharpen their focus, and stay consistent even when motivation fades. Because real progress is not built on excitement alone, but on the ability to remain driven through clarity and discipline. If you have ever started strong but struggled to maintain momentum, or felt inspired one day and distracted the next, this audiobook was created for you. Because motivation is not something you wait for, but something you understand, cultivate, and renew intentionally. Today's audiobook is titled Motivation: Stay Driven, Focused and Consistent, and it is a deep exploration of how motivation truly works, how to protect it from distraction and burnout, and how to build systems that allow you to stay committed even when energy fluctuates. This audiobook will guide you through powerful ideas that reshape how you think about drive, discipline, focus, resilience, and long-term consistency, helping you transform temporary inspiration into sustainable progress. Before we begin, we invite you to subscribe to Freema Audiobooks, like this audiobook, share it with someone who wants to stay driven and consistent, and leave a comment telling us where you are listening from, because your support allows this channel to continue creating meaningful audiobooks that help people grow every day. Before we move deeper into the principles that shape lasting drive and consistency, it is important to understand that this audiobook is structured into 8 carefully connected chapters, each one designed to build your motivation from the inside out so it becomes stable, renewable, and resistant to distraction. Every chapter builds upon the previous one, allowing you to understand not only how motivation feels, but how it functions, how it fades, and how it can be rebuilt deliberately through awareness and discipline. Chapter 1. Understanding Motivation. Why drive begins in the mind before it shows in action. In this chapter, we explore what motivation truly is, how it operates beneath the surface of behavior, why it often fluctuates unexpectedly, and how understanding its psychological and emotional foundations allows you to stay driven, focused, and consistent even when inspiration fades. Motivation is often mistaken for a surge of emotion that appears spontaneously and disappears just as quickly, yet in reality it is deeply connected to meaning, clarity, and perceived progress, which means it can be understood, strengthened, and managed rather than passively waited for. Many people assume that a lack of motivation is a sign of weakness or laziness, but more often it is a signal that direction is unclear or that effort feels disconnected from purpose. When purpose fades, energy declines. When energy declines, focus weakens. Weak focus reduces results. Reduced results diminish confidence. This cycle repeats silently. Understanding this cycle interrupts it. Awareness restores control. Control rebuilds drive. Motivation becomes manageable rather than mysterious. At its core, motivation is influenced by how the mind interprets effort and reward, because when progress feels meaningful and achievable, energy rises naturally without force. If goals feel overwhelming or distant, the brain resists sustained effort. Even when desire remains strong, knowledge changes interpretation. Clear goals reduce overwhelm. Reduced overwhelm supports action. Action builds momentum. Momentum increases belief. Belief strengthens motivation. This chain explains why clarity fuels drive more effectively than pressure ever could. Another important truth about motivation is that it is closely tied to identity, because people act consistently in ways that align with how they see themselves, which means motivation strengthens when behavior reflects self-image rather than external expectation. If someone identifies as disciplined, consistent action feels natural. If someone identifies as inconsistent, effort feels forced. Understanding this relationship empowers change. Identity can evolve. Evolved identity shapes behavior. Behavior reinforces belief. Motivation stabilizes when identity and action align. Motivation also fluctuates based on emotional state, because stress, fatigue, and unresolved concerns consume mental energy that would otherwise support focus and drive. When emotional clutter builds, attention fragments. Fragmented attention weakens progress. Weak progress reduces enthusiasm. Understanding this allows emotional management to become part of motivation training. Emotional awareness restores clarity. Clarity improves focus. Focus strengthens results. Results reinforce drive. External factors influence motivation as well, because environment shapes behavior more powerfully than intention alone, and surroundings filled with distraction reduce the brain's capacity to sustain effort even when desire exists. Knowledge reveals this connection. Environment can be adjusted. Adjusted environments reduce friction. Reduced friction supports consistency. Consistency strengthens motivation over time. Another overlooked element of motivation is perceived progress, because even small signs of improvement encourage continued effort, while invisible growth often leads to discouragement despite meaningful work being done. Understanding how progress compounds slowly prevents premature frustration. Patience replaces urgency. Urgency decreases stress. Reduced stress stabilizes focus. Focus improves results. Motivation becomes steadier. Motivation also depends on realistic expectations, because expecting constant excitement creates disappointment during inevitable low-energy periods, while understanding that fluctuation is natural reduces self-criticism and preserves discipline. Knowledge normalizes variation. Normalization reduces emotional reaction. Reduced reaction supports consistency. Consistency rebuilds momentum. Momentum renews drive. Ultimately, understanding motivation transforms it from a fragile emotion into a trainable internal system, where clarity, identity, emotional regulation, and structured effort work together to sustain focus and consistency. This chapter establishes the foundation for everything that follows, because before motivation can be strengthened, it must first be understood, and once understood, it can be directed intentionally rather than left to chance. Now that we understand what motivation truly is and why it fluctuates, the next step is learning how to build it from within rather than depending on circumstances, praise, or temporary excitement to generate momentum. In this chapter, we move from awareness to construction by exploring how internal drive is created, strengthened, and protected so that consistency becomes natural rather than forced. Chapter 2. Building internal drive, creating motivation that lasts. In this chapter, we explore how internal drive is developed through purpose, clarity, self-trust, and structured action, why intrinsic motivation outlasts external rewards, and how building motivation from within creates sustainable focus and long-term consistency. Internal drive begins with purpose, because when effort is connected to something meaningful rather than superficial, the mind naturally generates energy to support action even during challenging periods. Many people rely on external rewards such as recognition, income, or comparison for motivation, yet these sources fluctuate and lose intensity over time. When rewards fade, effort weakens. Weak effort reduces results. Reduced results diminish confidence. This cycle discourages consistency. Internal purpose stabilizes effort. Stable effort compounds progress. Progress reinforces belief. Belief sustains drive over time. Clarity strengthens internal drive because vague goals create hesitation while clearly defined outcomes provide direction and reduce mental resistance. When direction is unclear, energy disperses. Dispersed energy weakens focus. Weak focus slows progress. Knowledge refines intention. Clear intention guides action. Action builds momentum. Momentum restores confidence. Confidence strengthens commitment. Drive becomes structured rather than emotional. Self-trust plays a central role in lasting motivation, because when individuals consistently follow through on commitments, even small ones, they build an internal reputation that reinforces belief in their own reliability. Reliability strengthens confidence. Confidence reduces hesitation. Reduced hesitation improves action. Action sustains progress. Progress fuels motivation. This positive loop strengthens internal drive gradually rather than dramatically. Internal drive also grows through disciplined repetition because repeated action reduces psychological resistance and transforms effort into habit. Habit reduces friction. Reduced friction increases consistency. Consistency compounds results. Results reinforce identity. Identity strengthens drive. Over time, discipline supports motivation instead of replacing it. Another key element is ownership, because taking responsibility for outcomes eliminates excuses that weaken internal drive and restores a sense of control over direction and effort. Ownership builds empowerment. Empowerment reduces helplessness. Reduced helplessness increases action. Action builds progress. Progress reinforces responsibility. This cycle sustains drive even during setbacks. Internal motivation strengthens when comparison is minimized, because constantly measuring progress against others creates insecurity and distraction that disrupt focus. Knowledge restores perspective. Perspective anchors effort internally. Anchored effort reduces emotional volatility. Stability preserves consistency. Consistency strengthens confidence. Confidence fuels internal drive. Small wins also contribute significantly to sustaining motivation, because incremental progress signals improvement and reinforces belief in eventual success. Visible progress encourages persistence. Persistence compounds growth. Growth strengthens identity. Identity stabilizes motivation. Drive becomes resilient rather than fragile. Ultimately, building internal drive transforms motivation from something dependent on mood into something rooted in purpose, clarity, self-trust, and discipline systems. This chapter reinforces that lasting motivation is constructed deliberately through understanding and repetition, creating a foundation strong enough to support focus and consistency across time. As internal drive begins to stabilize and motivation becomes less dependent on emotion, the next challenge is protecting that drive from the constant distractions and interruptions that quietly erode focus and consistency. In this chapter, we explore how attention is preserved, how distractions are minimized, and why safeguarding focus is essential for sustaining motivation over the long term. Chapter 3. Protecting focus, eliminating distractions that kill motivation. In this chapter, we explore how distraction undermines motivation. why focus must be protected intentionally rather than assumed, and how designing environments and habits that support attention allows drive and consistency to remain strong even in demanding circumstances. Motivation weakens not only because of emotional fluctuation, but because attention is constantly divided in a world that rewards distraction and instant gratification, making sustained focus feel unnatural unless it is deliberately trained. Every time attention shifts unnecessarily, momentum is interrupted. Interrupted momentum slows progress. Slowed progress reduces visible results. Reduced results weaken enthusiasm. This silent erosion often goes unnoticed. Knowledge reveals the pattern. Awareness restores responsibility. Responsibility enables correction. Correction rebuilds rhythm. Rhythm strengthens motivation. Distraction is rarely accidental, because many environments are structured around stimulation rather than depth, which means protecting focus requires intentional design rather than passive hope. Notifications fragment attention. Fragmented attention reduces quality. Reduced quality discourages effort. Knowledge encourages removing unnecessary triggers. Fewer triggers reduce temptation. Reduced temptation improves discipline. Discipline stabilizes focus. Focus supports consistency. Consistency reinforces drive. Internal distraction can be just as damaging as external noise, because unresolved thoughts, worries, and unclear priorities pull attention away even in quiet settings, creating a scattered mental state that drains motivation silently. Mental clutter consumes energy. Consumed energy weakens concentration. Weak concentration slows execution. Knowledge promotes reflection. Reflection organizes thought. Organized thought strengthens clarity. Clarity restores focus. Focus improves performance. Performance rebuilds motivation. Another important aspect of protecting focus is defining clear work periods and boundaries, because undefined time invites distraction while structured blocks create psychological commitment. Clear structure reduces hesitation. Reduced hesitation accelerates action. Action builds momentum. Momentum sustains engagement. Engagement reinforces drive. Over time, structured focus becomes habitual rather than forced. Limiting multitasking is also essential, because switching between tasks consumes cognitive resources and prevents deep progress even when activity appears productive. Deep work strengthens mastery. Mastery builds confidence. Confidence stabilizes motivation. Knowledge encourages single tasking. Single tasking improves depth. Depth accelerates growth. Growth fuels drive. Technology management plays a central role in protecting motivation, because devices are designed to capture attention rather than support long-term goals, making conscious usage critical for sustained focus. Conscious control restores agency. Agency strengthens discipline. Discipline preserves attention. Preserved attention sustains progress. Progress reinforces motivation. Focus protection also involves prioritizing high-impact tasks early in the day when mental clarity is strongest, because aligning effort with peak energy maximizes results and reinforces belief in capability. Early success builds confidence. Confidence fuels momentum. Momentum stabilizes drive. This alignment reduces frustration and improves consistency. Ultimately, protecting focus transforms motivation from something fragile into something resilient, because attention directed consistently toward meaningful work compounds progress and reinforces internal drive. This chapter reinforces that distraction is not merely an inconvenience, but a silent threat to motivation, and that disciplined attention is one of the most powerful tools for sustaining long-term consistency. Even with protected focus and strong internal drive, there will inevitably be days when energy feels low and enthusiasm fades, because motivation naturally fluctuates as part of human rhythm rather than personal failure. In this chapter, we explore how discipline sustains action when motivation declines, and why consistency during low-energy periods is what truly separates temporary effort from lasting progress. Even with protected focus and strong internal drive, there will inevitably be days when energy feels low and enthusiasm fades, because motivation naturally fluctuates as part of human rhythm rather than personal failure. In this chapter, we explore how discipline sustains action when motivation declines, and why consistency during low-energy periods is what truly separates temporary effort from lasting progress. Chapter 4. Discipline when motivation fades, staying consistent on low-energy days. In this chapter, we explore how discipline sustains progress when motivation weakens, why low-energy days are inevitable rather than exceptional, and how structured habits protect consistency even when emotional drive is minimal. Motivation is naturally variable because it is influenced by sleep, stress, environment, emotional state, which means expecting constant inspiration sets an unrealistic standard that often leads to disappointment and unnecessary self-criticism. When enthusiasm dips, many people interpret it as failure. This interpretation weakens effort. Weak effort slows progress. Slowed progress reduces confidence. Confidence declines further. Knowledge reframes fluctuation as normal. Normalization reduces emotional reaction. Reduced reaction preserves stability. Stability protects consistency. Discipline becomes essential precisely when motivation fades, because action taken without strong emotion reinforces identity more powerfully than action taken during excitement. When effort continues despite low enthusiasm, self-trust strengthens. Strengthened self-trust stabilizes commitment. Commitment sustains progress. Progress restores momentum. Momentum gradually rebuilds motivation. This quiet perseverance compounds results. Structured routines make low-energy consistency possible because pre-decided actions reduce the need for internal negotiation, which often drains energy before work even begins. Decision fatigue consumes willpower. Reduced willpower weakens follow-through. Systems eliminate unnecessary decisions. Eliminated decisions preserve clarity. Preserved clarity supports execution. Execution maintains rhythm. Rhythm protects drive over time. Another key idea is lowering the threshold of action on difficult days, because small, consistent steps prevent complete disengagement and preserve progress even when capacity feels limited. Small actions maintain connection to goals. Connection preserves identity. Identity stabilizes behavior. Behavior sustains momentum. Momentum prevents discouragement. This strategy transforms low days into manageable periods rather than setbacks. Emotional detachment from performance outcomes also supports discipline during motivational decline, because attaching self-worth to productivity intensifies stress and reduces focus. Knowledge separates effort from identity. This separation reduces pressure. Reduced pressure restores clarity. Clarity improves action. Action maintains consistency. Consistency gradually rebuilds confidence. Accepting imperfection is another essential component of disciplined consistency, because striving for ideal performance on every day often leads to avoidance when conditions are less than optimal. Knowledge encourages progress over perfection. Progress accumulates steadily. Accumulation builds results. Results reinforce belief. Belief sustains commitment. Recovery must also be respected, because sometimes low motivation signals fatigue rather than laziness. And ignoring genuine exhaustion undermines long-term consistency. Knowledge distinguishes between resistance and depletion. Appropriate rest restores energy. Restored energy improves focus. Focus strengthens output. Sustainable discipline balances effort and renewal intelligently. Ultimately, discipline during low-energy days builds resilience and deep self-trust, because it demonstrates that action is not dependent on feeling inspired but guided by commitment and structure. This chapter reinforces that consistency during ordinary days, not extraordinary ones, is what transforms motivation from temporary enthusiasm into lasting progress. Once discipline carries you through low-energy days and consistency becomes more reliable than emotion, the next powerful force in sustaining motivation emerges through momentum, because small forward movements accumulate into confidence and energy that feels self-reinforcing. In this chapter, we explore how momentum is created intentionally, how small wins strengthen drive, and why progress builds motivation more effectively than inspiration ever could. Chapter 5. Building momentum, turning small wins into lasting drive. In this chapter, we explore how momentum is generated through consistent action, why small wins play a critical role in sustaining motivation, and how understanding progress psychology allows you to transform minor achievements into powerful long-term drive. Momentum begins with action, not feeling, because waiting for motivation to initiate movement often leads to prolonged stagnation, while even modest steps forward create psychological evidence of progress that energizes further effort. Action breaks inertia. Broken inertia reduces resistance. Reduced resistance makes the next step easier. Easier steps increase repetition. Repetition builds rhythm. Rhythm strengthens confidence. Confidence fuels motivation. Motivation supports continued action. This upward cycle explains why starting small can create powerful forward motion. Small wins matter because the brain responds positively to visible progress, even when that progress appears modest compared to long-term goals. Visible progress reinforces belief. Reinforced belief stabilizes effort. Stabilized effort sustains consistency. Consistency compounds outcomes. Over time, these small increments accumulate into significant advancement. Understanding this principle prevents the discouragement that often arises from comparing early steps to distant ambitions. Another key element of building momentum is tracking progress intentionally, because what is measured becomes visible, and visibility strengthens motivation by turning abstract effort into tangible movement. Measurement creates awareness. Awareness highlights improvement. Highlighted improvement builds confidence. Confidence reinforces commitment. Commitment deepens consistency. Momentum becomes measurable rather than imagined. Momentum also reduces emotional friction because progress generates a sense of forward direction, and direction minimizes the confusion that often drains motivation. Clarity supports action. Action strengthens rhythm. Rhythm stabilizes discipline. Discipline compounds progress. This sequence builds internal stability and sustained drive. Celebrating progress appropriately strengthens momentum because acknowledgement reinforces effort and signals value to the mind. while ignoring improvement diminishes emotional reward and weakens drive. Recognition amplifies satisfaction. Motivation. Increased motivation strengthens action. Action deepens progress. Progress sustains momentum. Consistency in small actions also reduces fear because repeated exposure to manageable challenges builds confidence and lowers perceived difficulty over time. Confidence stabilizes effort. Stable effort strengthens belief. Belief reinforces identity. Identity sustains motivation. Momentum grows gradually but steadily. Another critical insight is that momentum is easier to maintain than to create, which means protecting early progress is essential for long-term consistency. Protecting progress preserves confidence. Preserved confidence sustains action. Sustained action strengthens momentum. Momentum compounds drive. Ultimately, building momentum transforms motivation from a fragile emotion into a the reinforcing system where progress fuels confidence and confidence fuels further progress. This chapter reinforces that small, consistent victories are not insignificant, but foundational to staying driven, focused, and consistent over time. As momentum builds and progress becomes visible, the next inevitable challenge appears in the form of setbacks, delays, and unexpected obstacles, because no meaningful journey remains smooth or uninterrupted for long. In this chapter, we explore how resilience protects motivation during difficult periods and how understanding failure prevents temporary setbacks from becoming permanent quitting points. Chapter 6: Resilience in Setbacks, Staying Motivated When Things Go Wrong. In this chapter, we explore how setbacks affect motivation, why failure is often misinterpreted in ways that weaken drive, and how resilience allows you to remain focused, consistent, and committed even when progress slows or reverses temporarily. Setbacks are often perceived as signs of inadequacy rather than natural components of growth, and this misinterpretation can drain motivation far more quickly than the obstacle itself. When failure is internalized as identity rather than experience, confidence declines. Declining confidence weakens effort. Weak effort slows recovery. Slow recovery reinforces discouragement. Knowledge reframes failure as feedback. Feedback guides adjustment. Adjustment restores direction. Direction rebuilds momentum. This shift protects motivation during difficulty. Resilience begins with emotional regulation, because strong reactions to setbacks amplify stress and distort perception, making challenges appear larger than they truly are. Emotional awareness creates distance. Distance allows reflection. Reflection improves judgment. Improved judgment supports corrective action. Corrective action restores progress. Progress renews confidence. Confidence stabilizes drive. Another essential insight is that setbacks often reveal weaknesses in systems rather than limitations in ability, and understanding this difference prevents unnecessary self-doubt. Systems can be improved. Improvement strengthens structure. Stronger structure increases consistency. Consistency restores momentum. Momentum rebuilds motivation. This perspective encourages growth instead of retreat. Patience plays a crucial role during setbacks because recovery rarely occurs instantly, and unrealistic expectations can create additional frustration that weakens persistence. Knowledge normalizes delay. Normalization reduces panic. Reduced panic preserves clarity. Clarity supports disciplined action. Disciplined action shortens recovery time. Motivation survives because perspective remains balanced. Resilience also strengthens when setbacks are viewed as training rather than punishment, because each challenge builds problem-solving skills, adaptability, and emotional endurance that contribute to long-term consistency. Growth replaces shame. Learning replaces regret. Knowledge transforms adversity into experience. Experience strengthens confidence. Confidence fuels motivation. Support systems also influence resilience because encouragement, accountability, and perspective from others can stabilize motivation when self-belief temporarily declines. External reinforcement strengthens internal resolve. Reinforced resolve sustains effort. Effort rebuilds momentum. Momentum restores confidence. Motivation stabilizes. Another key idea is separating outcome from identity, because when self-worth is tied exclusively to results, setbacks feel devastating rather than instructional. Knowledge reinforces self-respect independent of performance. This separation reduces fear. Reduced fear encourages re-engagement. Re-engagement accelerates recovery. Motivation remains intact. Ultimately, resilience in setbacks ensures that motivation does not depend on constant success, but on steady commitment to growth and improvement despite temporary obstacles. Setbacks feel devastating rather than instructional. Knowledge reinforces self-respect independent of performance. This separation reduces fear. Reduced fear encourages re-engagement. Re-engagement accelerates recovery. Motivation remains intact. Ultimately, resilience in setbacks ensures that motivation does not depend on constant success, but on steady commitment to growth and improvement despite temporary obstacles. Chapter reinforces that consistency through difficulty, not ease, is what transforms motivation into long-term strength. As resilience strengthens and setbacks lose their power to derail progress, The next step in sustaining long-term motivation lies in creating daily rituals that protect focus and reinforce consistency without requiring constant emotional intensity. In this chapter, we explore how structured routines become anchors for motivation, and how intentional daily practices transform drive from a feeling into a dependable habit. Chapter 7. Creating daily motivation rituals, designing consistency into your routine. In this chapter, we explore how daily rituals strengthen motivation, why structured habits reduce reliance on fluctuating emotion, and how designing intentional routines allows you to stay driven, focused, and consistent across changing circumstances. Motivation becomes stable when it is supported by daily rituals that remove uncertainty from the beginning of each day. Chapter 7. Creating daily motivation rituals, designing consistency into your routine. In this chapter, we explore how daily rituals strengthen motivation, why structured habits reduce reliance on fluctuating emotion, and how designing intentional routines allows you to stay driven, focused, and consistent across changing circumstances. Motivation becomes stable when it is supported by daily rituals that remove uncertainty from the beginning of each day, because predictable structure reduces hesitation and conserves mental energy for meaningful effort rather than internal negotiation. When mornings begin without direction, time drifts. Drifting time weakens momentum. Weak momentum reduces progress. Reduced progress diminishes enthusiasm. Knowledge reframes routine as empowerment rather than restriction. Empowerment strengthens discipline. Discipline stabilizes behavior. Behavior compounds results. Rituals anchor motivation reliably. A powerful ritual begins with clarity, because starting the day with defined priorities eliminates confusion and channels attention toward high-impact tasks before distractions accumulate. Clear intention sharpens focus. Sharpened focus accelerates action. Accelerated action builds momentum. Momentum sustains drive. This sequence transforms early effort into sustained productivity throughout the day. Consistency in small daily actions reinforces identity, because repeated follow-through builds internal credibility and strengthens self-trust over time. Self-trust reduces doubt. Reduced doubt improves commitment. Commitment stabilizes discipline. Discipline compounds performance. Motivation grows through reliability rather than excitement. Morning rituals often shape the tone of the entire day, because intentional preparation enhances emotional regulation and focus before external demands interfere. Calm beginnings reduce stress. Reduced stress improves clarity. Clarity strengthens execution. Execution supports consistency. Over time, rituals become automatic, and motivation feels less fragile. Evening rituals also support sustained drive because reflection, planning, and recovery prepare the mind for continued effort rather than exhaustion. Reflection integrates learning. Learning strengthens confidence. Confidence stabilizes motivation. Recovery restores energy. Restored energy improves focus. This cycle ensures continuity across days. Another essential element of daily rituals is eliminating unnecessary friction, because simplifying preparation reduces resistance and increases the likelihood of consistent action. Reduced friction supports repetition. Repetition builds habit. Habit stabilizes motivation. Motivation becomes embedded in routine. Tracking progress within rituals reinforces forward movement because visible improvement strengthens belief and deepens commitment. Belief fuels discipline. Discipline strengthens consistency. Consistency compounds outcomes. Motivation thrives on evidence of growth. Ultimately, daily motivation rituals transform drive into structure, allowing focus and discipline to function even when emotions fluctuate. This chapter reinforces that motivation does not need to be dramatic to be powerful, because consistent daily structure creates reliability that sustains progress over time. With mindset strengthened, focus protected, discipline established, momentum built, resilience developed, and daily rituals in place, the final piece of lasting motivation lies in integration, where all these elements operate together as a unified system rather than isolated strategies. In this final chapter, we explore how motivation becomes a lifestyle built on clarity, balance, and sustainable consistency. Chapter 8. Motivation as a lifestyle, living driven, focused, and consistent. In this chapter, we explore how motivation becomes a way of living rather than a temporary state, why integration of mindset, discipline, and resilience creates sustainable drive, and how staying consistent over time transforms effort into lasting achievement. Motivation becomes powerful when it evolves from occasional inspiration into a daily standard of living. Chapter 8. Motivation as a lifestyle, living driven, focused, and consistent. In this chapter, we explore how motivation becomes a way of living rather than a temporary state, why integration of mindset, discipline, and resilience creates sustainable drive, and how staying consistent over time transforms effort into lasting achievement. Motivation becomes powerful when it evolves from occasional inspiration into a daily standard of living, where clarity guides direction and discipline supports execution without requiring constant emotional stimulation. When drive is integrated into identity, action feels natural, Natural action reduces resistance. Reduced resistance improves consistency. Consistency compounds results. Results reinforce belief. Belief stabilizes commitment. Motivation becomes internal rather than external. Integration requires balance, because pushing relentlessly without renewal leads to exhaustion, while excessive rest without intention weakens momentum. Knowledge encourages harmony between effort and recovery. Balanced effort preserves energy. Preserved energy sustains focus. Focus strengthens performance. Motivation remains steady across time. Another critical insight is adaptability, because circumstances change and routines must evolve without losing direction. Flexibility preserves structure. Preserved structure supports consistency. Consistency maintains momentum. Momentum sustains drive. Motivation adapts rather than collapses. Living motivated also involves aligning effort with long-term vision, because short-term tasks feel meaningful when connected to broader goals. Vision clarifies purpose. Purpose strengthens discipline. Discipline supports daily action. Action compounds achievement. Motivation gains depth and endurance. Consistency in lifestyle choices reinforces identity, because repeated disciplined behavior reshapes self-perception and strengthens commitment to excellence. Identity shapes action. Action reinforces habit. Habit stabilizes motivation. Drive becomes part of who you are. Self-awareness sustains long-term motivation because understanding personal rhythms and limitations allows intelligent adjustment rather than burnout. Adjustment protects energy. Energy supports performance. Performance reinforces confidence. Confidence fuels motivation. Ultimately, motivation as a lifestyle transforms effort from something occasional into something stable and reliable, where focus, discipline, resilience, and clarity operate together in harmony. This final chapter reinforces that staying driven, focused, and consistent is not about constant intensity, but about intelligent integration and steady commitment over time. As this audiobook comes to its conclusion, it becomes clear that motivation is not a fleeting emotion reserved for moments of inspiration, but a system that can be understood, strengthened, and sustained through clarity, discipline, resilience, and daily structure. Throughout these 8 chapters, you have explored how motivation begins with awareness, is strengthened through internal drive, protected by focused attention, supported by discipline during low-energy days, accelerated through momentum, preserved through resilience in setbacks, reinforced by daily rituals, and ultimately transformed into a lifestyle built on consistency rather than emotion. When these elements work together, motivation no longer feels unpredictable or fragile, but becomes a steady force guiding your actions even when circumstances shift or energy fluctuates. If this audiobook helped you reflect on your habits, rebuild your focus, or see motivation from a deeper and more practical perspective, we invite you to subscribe to free audiobooks like this audiobook and share it with someone who wants to stay driven, focused, and consistent in their goals, because the right understanding at the right moment can quietly change the direction of a life. We also encourage you to leave a comment and share which chapter resonated with you most, as your engagement helps this channel continue creating thoughtful, powerful audiobooks designed to support long-term growth and personal excellence. Thank you for listening to Frama Audiobooks. And remember that true motivation is not something you wait for, but something you build daily through intentional thought, disciplined action, and unwavering commitment to progress.